Number 1. The Amityville Horror House. This is by far the most documented and notorious haunted house in the world. It is located in the sleepy seaside town of Amityville and an hour's drive from New York. And although many people argue that the entire story was nothing more than an elaborate hoax, I myself believe otherwise. Let me start at the beginning. On November the 13th, 1974, 6 members of the DeFeo family were tragically shot to death while they slept in their beds. Even to this day, how these murders were carried out remain unsolved and shrouded in mystery. One of the main anomalies surrounding the murders is the fact that none of the neighbours heard any of the gunshots despite their close proximity to the DeFeo house. Each family member was shot with a 35 Marlin rifle. Now, to give you an idea of how loud this gun actually is, I found a YouTube video of someone demonstrating the same gun. Let's have a listen. You can clearly hear how loud a gun like this would be in a quiet suburban neighbourhood. Have a listen to what Ronald DeFeo's attorney had to say. Now, the authorities initially thought that the bodies had all been moved from their original spots, but the autopsy reports showed that they were all in the original places where they were shot. Furthermore, toxicology reports found that there were no drugs in any of the victims. Let's think about this logically. If you were to hear shots fired in your own home, wouldn't your first reaction be to run for your life or at least look for a place to hide? Not one single victim moved from their bed, and in my opinion, the only explanation for this is that much darker forces were at play on that cold winter's night. On December the 4th, 1975, Judge Thomas Stark sentenced DeFeo to 6 concurrent sentences of 25 years to life. He's currently held at Greenhaven Correctional Facility in the town of Greenhaven, New York, and all of his appeals and requests to the parole board to date have been denied. On December the 18th, 1975, the Lutz family moved into the DeFeo home. Even though it had only been 13 months since the murders, they discussed the events that had occurred in the house and came to the decision that they would all be okay. At no point did they ever consider the possibility that there could be any residual leftover from the gruesome murders. Even though the family didn't have a problem with the home's history, they still decided to have it blessed by a priest. While blessing one of the rooms, the priest heard a voice telling him to get out and was also slapped by an invisible entity. George Lutz also found himself waking up every morning at around 3:15 a.m, which ironically was around the same time the DeFeo family was murdered. Kathy Lutz would have vivid nightmares of the DeFeo tragedy. She would experience in detail where the bullets went in and out of Mrs. DeFeo's body, as well as determine who died in what order. This was later confirmed by Ronald DeFeo's attorney, who told Kathy that her visions were totally in line with what the police had discovered. None of this information was ever published or leaked to the public. George Lutz constantly felt sick inside the house and lost a considerable amount of weight. He started to undergo extreme personality changes and would yell at his wife and family for no apparent reason. He was also constantly chopping wood for the fireplace, but no matter how hot it got inside, he just wasn't able to get warm. His wife at one stage felt that she was embraced by a female entity and would often find swarms of flies in various rooms, which was highly unusual in the middle of winter. Their daughter Missy told her mum that she had a friend named Jody that would represent herself as a large pig with bright red eyes. Jody told Missy that she was happy they were living there and that she was going to live there forever, which George and Kathy found quite disturbing. The family would often hear weird noises and footsteps throughout the night and would experience unusual temperature changes that would occur at random. They also found a black substance coming out of the toilet that just couldn't be explained. On the 13th of January 1976, only 28 days after moving in, the Lutz family left their house and all of their belongings and never returned to 112 Ocean Avenue. Even though the family owned a successful business, they did pour a lot of money into the house and they were never known to be storytellers or scam artists. By all accounts, they were just a normal young couple trying to raise their kids in what initially seemed to be their dream home. 5 months after they fled the house, it was sold at a substantial loss and everything in the home was auctioned off. 20 days after the Lutz family fled their house, New York TV station Channel 5 called in a celebrated pair of psychics, Ed and Lorraine Warren. At the time, they were famous for investigating the paranormal and supernatural. The TV station also assembled a group of other accomplished psychics to help with the investigation. Soon after the Channel 5 news team and their reporter Marvin Scott arrived at the house, people started behaving in a very unusual manner. While on the second floor, one of the cameramen started clutching his chest and started to experience stabbing chest pains. When the psychics approached the second floor, they could all feel the bad remnants of the murders and an overwhelming sense of sadness. One of the psychics saw a young girl crying, and during the seance, Lorraine Warren sensed an evil demonic presence that was separate from the murdered spirits of the DeFeo family. Now, even though nothing happened for the TV cameras, one of the images taken that night would, in my opinion, send a chill down the back of even the most hardened skeptic. One of the cameras was set up on a tripod on the second floor and automatically shot off a flash photograph every few minutes. One of those photos shows a distinct figure of a little boy standing in front of the doorway, peering over the staircase. There were no children in the house that night, and what makes this photo even creepier is the uncanny resemblance to one of the DeFeo children. There have been many people over the years that have tried to discredit the Amityville horror as nothing more than a well-concocted hoax. But both George and Kathy Lutz stood by their story until the day they died. In 1979, they both took a lie detector test concerning the events in the house and passed with flying colours. If you like this short clip, do yourself a favour and click on the thumbnail to watch the entire video now.